Before a man holds wealth in his hand, he must hold it in his mind. Before a man leads others, he must govern himself. Before a man touches abundance, he must detach from desperation. Because wealth is not first a number, it is a state. It is a rhythm of thought, a frequency of discipline, a calmness in the mind that moves in harmony with law. And the man who does not master this, no matter how many tactics he knows, no matter how many books he reads, will sabotage his own fortune. He will build half-finished bridges. He will chase validation disguised as progress. He will live in reactivity, disguise it as action, and wonder why he feels poor, even when his pockets are full. And here is the core of your dilemma. Your brain is programmed to reflect your dominant emotional state. If you feel lack, it builds patterns of fear. If you feel pressure, it builds urgency and short-term decisions. If you feel like a victim, it will manufacture excuses to reinforce that belief. But if you feel wealthy now, in this moment, independent of results, your mind begins to operate from abundance. And from that abundance, you create with clarity, not panic. With purpose, not pressure. With discipline, not emotional chaos. This is the hidden door most men never find. You don't earn the feeling of wealth after you succeed. You generate it before success, and then success aligns. You do not wait to feel like a millionaire. You train your mind to operate like one. And that training begins with emotional detachment. Because the mind of a millionaire is not governed by mood, it is governed by mental standards. The millionaire does not think based on feeling, he feels based on what he chooses to think. He does not check his bank account to decide how confident he feels. He checks his focus, his schedule, his morning routine, his posture, his language, because he understands that his inner world determines how his outer world behaves. Now let me ask you, what kind of emotional signals are you broadcasting to your mind? What does your posture tell your subconscious? What does your voice, your breath, your inner dialogue say about your command over self? Because your brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality, it only responds to repetition and authority. So if you think from lack, speak from pressure, move from fear, then your brain will obey and create more of it. But if you command your thoughts, if you govern your inner world with calmness, clarity, and consistency, then you can trick your brain into feeling like a millionaire now. And that feeling, if repeated, becomes the soil of every real result to come. Let's now define something most have never heard: the law of mental identity. It states that your mind must always act in accordance with what it believes you are. If you see yourself as poor, desperate, waiting for permission, your brain will unconsciously reject wealth, sabotage deals, avoid responsibility, and justify delay. But if you install the identity of a wealthy, disciplined, focused creator of value, your mind will begin to select thoughts, filter actions, and form habits that align with that identity. And that, my friend, is how a fortune is made from the inside out. You do not work to become wealthy. You work to become the kind of man wealth has no choice but to follow. And you do that through emotional detachment. Because the poor man reacts. The rich man responds. The poor man feels before thinking. The rich man thinks before feeling. The poor man panics when results slow. The rich man holds frame, adjusts, and continues. The poor man is enslaved by urgency. The rich man is governed by vision. And that is what you must become: not motivated, not ready, not inspired, but clear, calm, and committed. A man may be clear in his intention, but weak in his execution. He may speak of goals, but his nervous system still flinches at pressure. He may declare wealth with his lips, but his habits shout scarcity. And the brain, loyal to its master, listens not to what you hope for, but to what you repeat. You must now understand this essential law. The mind adapts to identity, not intention. And identity is built in moments of tension, not comfort. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, your mind rewires itself toward wealth. Every time you delay gratification, speak with intention, or withhold an emotional reaction, your brain hears, "This man has standards." And when standards rise, results rise. You do not earn your way into wealth, you discipline your way into it. You think your way into it. You detach your way into it. You must be willing to feel like a millionaire before your results justify it. You must walk into the day with posture, tone, and thought patterns that reflect the life you are building, not the one you are escaping. Now you may ask, isn't that fake? There's number. That is faith in action. There is no deception in aligning your behavior with your destiny. The real deception is pretending that emotional chaos is acceptable simply because the bank account is low. Let me now give you a direct command, one that has built empires and buried excuses. You must act like the man you are becoming, not the man you are trying to escape. Your brain must be shown, through action and attention, that poverty is no longer welcome. Not just financial poverty, but poverty of thought, poverty of focus, poverty of composure, poverty of self-command. Now let us break it down with ruthless clarity. Here's how you trick your brain into feeling like a millionaire now. 1. Master your mornings. Do not begin your day as a beggar of other people's thoughts. Silence your phone. Command your mind. Before the world makes demands on you, make demands on yourself. Stand tall. Speak your standards aloud. Recite who you are, not by what you've done, but by what you are building relentlessly. I am a calm, powerful, focused creator of value. I think with clarity. I move with precision. I attract results because I no longer need them to define me. Say it. Not once. Not when you feel like it. Every single day, your brain responds to dominant signals. If you do not dominate your mind, the world will. 2. Think from vision, not emotion. Do not consult your emotions when making decisions, consult your outcome. Ask, what would the wealthy version of me decide here? Ask, what does my vision require, not what does my feeling prefer? Ask, if I already had what I wanted, how would I behave? Then behave that way now. Your mind will follow the one who moves with confidence, even if you must pretend until it is permanent. 3. Train the inner eye. See it. Feel it. Walk through the day mentally rehearsing the life you are building as if it has already been yours for a decade. Not with fantasy, with precision. Smell the leather of your future car. See the figures in your business. Feel the way you speak to others with zero emotional charge. You must install wealth in the mind before it ever arrives in the mailbox. Why? Because the subconscious mind does not respond to logic, it responds to emotional repetition. Repeat the emotion of wealth until it becomes your base state. Walk through the world already rich in your thinking, and your brain will calibrate your behavior to match. And that behavior sustained is what the world rewards. The law of interstate primacy. The external world will always conform not to your desire, not to your desperation, but to the dominant emotion you live in. And until you discipline that state, command it, own it, build it like a fortress, your results will reflect confusion, lack, and emotional leakage. You cannot create abundance from a nervous system trained by fear. You cannot influence people when you still flinch inside your own body. You cannot lead when your facial expressions seek approval before they express certainty. So what must be done? You must rebuild the felt experience of power inside your mind. Not once, not sometimes, but daily until it becomes your nature. Understand this truth, and you will rise faster than 10 years of hard work. The man who feels wealthy, even when results say otherwise, bends time. He moves with calm when others panic. He speaks with conviction when others wait for consensus. He executes without hesitation because his inner world already owns the result. He is no longer attached to proving anything because he believes it already. That is the paradox. You must feel like a millionaire before your bank does, because the man who waits to feel it is always one step behind. And the man who generates it now, here, with what he has, becomes inevitable. Now let us examine how the truly disciplined trick their minds. They do not just say affirmations, they live inside them. They dress like clarity. They speak like certainty. They breathe like peace. They move like wealth, not to show off, but to show up fully. This is not fake it till you make it. This is train it until it takes over. And what are you training? You are training the energetic signature of wealth, the way wealth feels, thinks, behaves, and decides. Because When your brain believes you are already wealthy, not because of numbers, but because of posture, discipline, and focus, it stops seeking permission. It starts executing from embodiment. And that execution, repeated in private, becomes momentum in public. That is how empires are built, not by force, not by hype, but by a man who has already arrived internally. So I ask you now, can you sit in a small apartment and feel as calm as if you lived in a penthouse? Can you wear simplicity and carry yourself with the elegance of a man who owns 10 tailored suits? Can you walk into a room with less money than others and still radiate more focus, more dignity, more command? Because that is the beginning of wealth. Not when they notice you, but when you stop needing them to. Let's now speak about something more dangerous than failure: emotional inconsistency. Your brain cannot form high-performance habits if your state fluctuates with your mood. You say you're building a business, but you stop when you're tired. You say you want to lead, but you get offended when challenged. You say you're building a new identity, but you keep explaining yourself to those who aren't. That's not ambition, that's internal sabotage. Discipline is not about feeling good. It is about feeling neutral and still moving forward. Emotion is not the enemy. Attachment to emotion is. The man who treats every mood as a god will never become one. But the man who observes emotion, selects behavior, and executes anyway becomes untouchable. That, my friend, is how you trick your brain into feeling like a millionaire now. By no longer making every action dependent on how you feel, but by commanding yourself based on who you are becoming. And when that command becomes habit, and that habit becomes identity, your results will beg to match your energy. And when your results begin to catch up with your energy, you'll realize the secret that very few ever dare to admit. You were never chasing money, you were chasing alignment. Because when the mind, emotion, and body are aligned toward a single dominant ideal, wealth becomes inevitable. You no longer need to be reminded to take action because you have become the kind of man who acts. You no longer need to convince yourself to focus because you live in focus as a default state. You no longer need to visualize success because you've trained your nervous system to feel like it already lives there. This is the moment you cross a threshold. Not a motivational one, a neurological one. A point of no return where the body has become a servant of vision, not of emotion. Where the mind acts from cause, not from consequence. Where the tongue no longer speaks in fear, but in finality. Now let us clarify something most misunderstand. Wealth is not about excess, it is about control. Control of your time. Control of your mind. Control of your environment. Control of how you respond, especially when stakes are high. The average man cannot stay calm when someone disrespects him. He cannot think clearly when the pressure rises. He cannot speak cleanly when his ego is bruised. And that's why he stays broke. Not because he isn't smart, but because he lacks emotional sovereignty. But the man who can remain calm, even when misunderstood, the man who can continue forward, even when the applause is absent, the man who can delay pleasure, even when every voice says, "Take it now," that man is not just wealthy, he is wealthy before the world even notices. Because true wealth is not a bank account. It is a pattern of self-respect, repeated until the world aligns. And how do you build that pattern? You begin by choosing, every moment of every day, not to negotiate with your lower self. The lower self says, "We'll wait until we feel ready." The higher self says, "We act because we said we would." The lower self says, "Let's tone it down to avoid judgment." The higher self says, "We lead with strength, regardless of opinion." The lower self says, "Let's rest because it's hard." The higher self says, "Let's move because it's hard." When your actions are determined by your identity, not your emotion, then you've crossed the line between the man who waits and the man who creates. Now, hear this. You must become addicted to inner peace, not outer performance. Because peace is what wealth actually buys. And if you do not train your mind to live in peace while poor, you will destroy yourself when rich. This is why millionaires lose everything, because they built their fortune faster than they built their emotional detachment. Their mood still owned them. Their need for approval still governed them. Their mind still chased stimulation, not structure. But you are being called to build the opposite. A fortune en discipline. A reputation on consistency. a presence on purpose, not emotion. That is how you trick your brain into feeling like a millionaire, by showing it through action that you already are one, in identity, in order, and in thinking. And when identity is aligned, your mind will force your life to catch up. You will stop sabotaging progress. You will stop chasing shortcuts. You will stop tolerating low-standard environments. Because the man who feels like a millionaire inside can no longer survive in conversations that drain, in habits that delay, in thoughts that distract. He becomes allergic to poverty, not just in cash, but in character. And that allergy to poverty, that deep cellular rejection of weakness, delay, and drama, becomes your compass. It tells you what to cut. It tells you who to distance from. It tells you what no longer matches your mental wealth frequency. Because now, your standard is not survival, it is supremacy over self. And I tell you this with full conviction. You do not rise by what you tolerate. You rise by what you refuse to tolerate. Refuse to tolerate scattered thoughts. Refuse to tolerate emotional reactivity. Refuse to tolerate days spent drifting. Refuse to tolerate conversations that confuse your vision. Refuse to tolerate the internal lie that says, you need to see results before you believe. No, you believe now. You behave now. You embody now. And because of that, you attract results on your terms. Let us now speak of one of the most potent principles that governs this entire philosophy, the law of inner economy. The wealthiest people on earth, whether financially, spiritually, or socially, all operate by conserving their mental energy. They do not spend thoughts on what doesn't matter. They do not leak emotions on irrelevant insults. They do not overreact to delays. They understand that attention is expensive, and they invest it like a king guards his gold. Every poor man I've met has been rich in emotional chaos, and every wealthy man I've studied has been poor in wasted reaction. Do you see? The man who trains his brain to operate like a millionaire filters what enters his mind. He does not give emotional energy to gossip. He does not try to win every argument. He does not debate his worth with the world. He walks with such internal decisiveness that even silence from him feels like leadership. That is the man you must become. Because the world does not reward the loud, it rewards the calmly consistent. Let others shout, let others scroll, let others drift. You sit in silence. You build in solitude. You think with clarity. You feel like a millionaire because you are finally living like one in discipline. And when the world sees your results, they will call it talent. They will call it charisma. They will call it luck. They won't see the thousands of micro decisions you made to not react. They won't see the nights you sat in tension without collapsing. They won't see the mornings you moved forward without feeling motivated. But you will know. You will know that your bank account was built on your ability to delay reaction. You will know that your influence was built on your refusal to let your mind be ruled by emotion. You will know that your peace came not from life being easy, but from you being strong. And the brain, your ever-loyal servant, will finally say, "This man leads. Let us follow." That, my friend, is the moment your outer world begins to reflect the mental empire you've been quietly constructing. You feel like a millionaire not because you have millions. You feel like a millionaire because you think in millions, behave in millions, decide in millions. And wealth obedient to alignment starts showing up, not because you chased it, but because you became worthy of it before it arrived. And when it shows up not as fantasy, not as lottery, but as the fruit of identity, you will not be shocked. You will not feel like an imposter. You will not self-sabotage or apologize, because the results merely caught up to the man you decided to be long before anyone saw him. That is the true secret of all enduring wealth. It is attracted to order. It stays with stability, and it grows in the mind that already feels complete without it. If you want to own more, master detachment from needing more. If you want to influence many, be unmoved by the opinion of the few. If you want to create freedom first, create mental discipline so strong that no distraction can hijack your peace. The illusion of success says, once I get there, I'll feel powerful. The reality of success says, once I act powerful, I'll get there. Do not chase power, generate it internally. Do not beg for results, command the process through identity. You must live from vision. You must decide now, not when the world claps, not when the cash flows, not when your friends finally understand now. Because every moment you delay, you reinforce the old signal. I'm not yet the man. I'm not ready. I need more proof. And your brain, ever loyal to the dominant thought, says, yes, sir, and manifests more delay, more hesitation, more emotional sabotage. But the moment you act as if you were already the man, the moment you think as if wealth was already yours in mindset, the moment you discipline yourself as if your future demanded it, your brain says, this is who we are now. And it begins reprogramming your decisions, your habits, your behavior to match your new identity. And identity is destiny. So trick your brain not through lies, but through leadership. Be the voice inside your mind that says, we are not moved by numbers. We are not slaves to emotion. We are the source of wealth, the creators of order, the builders of discipline, the calm force that bends the future without noise. And repeat it. Live it. Not when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard. Especially when it's quiet. Especially when you're alone. Because that is the moment the old identity begins to die and the wealthy mind is born. Every transformation begins with a funeral. A funeral for the man who waited. A funeral for the man who panicked. A funeral for the man who needed evidence before he moved. A funeral for the emotional child living inside the adult body, the one who begged for reassurance before he took a single step. You must bury him. You must kill with conviction every thought pattern that whispers, it's okay to stay comfortable. It's okay to be ruled by moods. It's okay to wait for proof. Because that voice does not belong to your future. It belongs to your fear. And fear, my friend, is the poorest state of all. You must rise as the man who builds before the blueprint is clear, as the man who speaks before he's validated, as the man who walks like the deal is already done because internally it is. This is the one thing that keeps most men broke. They wait to be changed by the world, when the world is waiting to be changed by them. And your brain is waiting too. It is waiting for you to decide, not hope, decide. To say, we do not run on how we feel, we run on what we decided. Let me offer you the simplest shift that will change everything. Stop asking, how do I feel? Start asking, what did I choose? Because the man who lives from choice never needs permission. He never waits for a good day, he declares it. He never chases the high, he produces the frequency. And that frequency is the real millionaire signal. Not the cars, not the watch, not the accolades, but the tone in your voice, the depth in your silence, the precision in your walk, the neutrality in your emotional response. This is the language of power. This is how the brain is reprogrammed. Not through information, but through identity, expressed under pressure. Now let us get tactical. Each time you face a moment of decision, a real-world fork in the road, do not ask, what should I do? Ask this, what would the wealthiest, calmest, most focused version of me do right now? Then do it. And here's the key. Even if you don't feel like it, act like it's already you. You're not pretending you're installing. You are imprinting a new identity onto your nervous system. And the brain, when exposed to repetition and congruent behavior, adapts permanently. That is how change happens. Not in emotion, not in motivation, but in consistency with your chosen self. This is not a performance. This is practice. And every repetition counts. Every act of restraint. Every moment of emotional discipline. Every time you hold your peace in chaos, your brain records it as proof. This man is no longer poor. Not poor in wealth, poor in control. Because now you are rich in inner governance. And from that, all external wealth flows. And once you are rich in control, the rest follows like gravity obeys mass. Money flows to order. Influence flows to stability. Respect flows to presence. And opportunity flows to the man who no longer needs it to validate who he is. You see, the entire world bends to the man who no longer bends to himself. The man who used to flinch now observes. The man who used to chase now attracts. The man who used to delay now decides. And the greatest miracle of all is not that others begin to change. The miracle is that you stop negotiating with weakness. You no longer sit in rooms that drain your frequency. You no longer entertain habits that insult your ambition. You no longer speak words that contradict your mission. You move as a man who has already become the result he used to chase. Let me tell you what happens when this becomes your way of life. You begin to repel noise. You begin to irritate those who depend on your emotional weakness. You begin to separate from the average, not with arrogance, but with clarity, because clarity always divides. And your rising identity becomes a mirror that forces others to confront their stagnation. Let them. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them retreat. You are not here to be understood. You are here to become undeniable. You do not have time to argue with the version of yourself that panics. You do not have space to validate the voice that wants comfort more than character. You do not owe apologies to those who are offended by your focus, because the man who thinks like a millionaire before the millions arrive lives under a higher law, the law of internal precedence. It declares that inner reality governs outer result. Whatever you rehearse emotionally, you will repeat behaviorally. Whatever you repeat behaviorally, you will believe neurologically. Whatever you believe neurologically, you will manifest materially. And so, if you rehearse confidence, you begin to behave with precision. If you behave with precision, your brain begins to install belief. If your brain installs belief, your results become predictable. This is not magic. This is mental sovereignty. The mind is your kingdom. It will obey whoever rules it. If your emotions are king chaos, if your mood is king inconsistency, but if you are king discipline reigns, results flow, and wealth obeys. And now, the only question that remains is not how. It is when will you fully step into the man you've glimpsed in moments of strength? Not visit him, not perform him, become him, not on Mondays only, not when you feel supported, not when the weather is good or the feedback is perfect, but now. In this moment, before the world gives you permission, because your brain is listening, and it is building the next 90 days of your life based on what it hears from you today. So speak with finality, act with finality, detach from emotion and move with command, and you'll feel it. You'll feel like a millionaire before the money because you finally think like one. And that's the real secret. The man who feels like a millionaire before the world confirms it will never need the world to confirm it. He already is. And the world, slowly, then suddenly will align. And when the world aligns, do not be surprised. Do not blink. Do not flinch. Do not question whether you deserve it. You do not deserve success. You decided it. You built it in silence. You rehearsed it in discipline. You suffered for it in thought. And now it has simply come home to where it belongs. You no longer wonder if you're ready, because readiness is not something you chase. It is something you embody. And now you walk through every doorway like you built the frame. You speak into every room as if you wrote the agenda. You rise each morning already at altitude, because your altitude is no longer based on numbers. It is based on how you command your consciousness. Your focus is your compass. Your detachment is your sword. Your discipline is your fortress. And your mind is your sovereign kingdom. Guard it. Build it. Use it to construct a reality that cannot be bought, borrowed, or broken because it was forged in identity. You must understand this at your core. You trick your brain into feeling like a millionaire, not by pretending, but by mastering. You master your thoughts. You master your energy. You master your emotional state. You master your reactions. You master your choice. And your brain, faithful, obedient, precise, follows. And when your brain follows, your behavior shifts. And when your behavior shifts, your results escalate. And when your results escalate, your world bends. This is not fiction, this is law. But the law only serves the one who lives by it. Not the one who studies it. Not the one who writes about it. Not the one who posts quotes about it. But the man who walks with it, burned into his posture, embedded into his tone, encrypted into his execution. The man who walks away from reaction like it's poison. The man who treats every emotional outburst as a crack in his foundation. the man who would rather be calm and misunderstood than reactive and broken. That man does not wait for success, he becomes the gravitational force that draws it. Because the man who feels wealthy inside, regardless of what's in his hand, that man is dangerous to mediocrity. He is lethal to excuses. He is immune to the virus of comparison. And he is utterly unrecognizable to the man he used to be. That man does not return to his old self because his new self is no longer a costume. It is his nature. And that nature, trained, tested, tempered, becomes his destiny. So, hear me now one final time, not as a teacher, but as a voice from within. Your time to wait is over. Your time to hesitate is over. Your time to question your worth is over. You were not born to beg for clarity. You were born to create it. You were not meant to ask for permission. You were meant to build the path no one else could see. You were not designed to live in emotional reactivity. You were built to live in command. So stop asking how long it will take. Start deciding how long you will tolerate living below your identity. Because the moment you raise your standard, the moment you act like the man with wealth already in his blood, clarity already in his speech, and peace already in his bones, you do not need to chase results. You become the cause of them. And your brain, your body, your habits, your presence all begin to orbit around the version of you that once felt impossible. But now it is installed. Now it is inevitable. Now it is you.